It was the mid-1990s, and Hugh Grant was ready to give a toast to surviving 4 weddings and a funeral. This was also a time when incredible games proved to not be incredible enough to keep from getting cancelled twice. And People's funky sound was a sight for sore eyes, and Super R-Type demonstrated that a few unfortunate slowdowns weren't enough to derail a shoot-'em-up classic. Hello, my name is Cyril, and that's just one of the Super Nintendo games that we're going to be talking about as we continue our journey through Super Play's Top 600. This is the show where we're reading the verdicts and counting down every review published in the pages of Super Play magazine, even if that means being chased into the middle of a raging river. We left off last week with number 351, which means that today we're going to be focusing our attention on 350 through 301. Gang, we're almost halfway through the countdown, and we don't have a second to spare. So come, join me as I take a very quick swim through a bunch of middling Super NES cartridges. Brrr. Number 350, the 7th Saga. A disappointing effort, but if money is no object and you love all things RPG, then you'll certainly get some entertainment from this. Number 349, Yoshi's Safari. The best Super Scope game yet by a long way, with lots of funny bits and good ideas. It still doesn't measure up to our idea of top entertainment, though. Number 348, ActRaiser 2. A disappointing step backwards. It might boast 12 meg of audiovisual splendor, but shouldn't there be a game in there somewhere, too? Number 347, The Mask. A decent enough film license, it's just a pity that the gameplay isn't that engrossing. Number 346, Dragon Ball Z Super Butouden 3. Dragon Ball Z 3 is even more similar than 2 was to 1, which means that it's a quirky anime true game. Not a great beat-em-up, but, well, interesting in the short term at least. Number 345, The Jetsons. Let's be fair, the Prince of Persia idea and implementation is really rather excellent. And all the rest, just fair to middling, I'd say. Number 344, Sports Illustrated Championship, Football and Baseball. A great idea on paper, but limited in practice. Find 2 good, separate, secondhand titles instead. Number 343, Super Troll Islands. A bright and cheerful game, and I'm sure that young children will love it once they've mastered the tricky bits. But wait for the cheaper UK cart. Number 342, Pac-Man 2, The New Adventures. If you're short-tempered or impatient, avoid! But don't worry if you aren't, because you'll soon begin to demonstrate these fine qualities after a weekend of Pac-Man 2. Number 341, Cal Ripkin Jr. Baseball. A bit slow-moving, and a baseball game, obviously, but otherwise pretty solid with no obvious flaws. Pro League 93 is better though. Number 340, Shinseiki GPX Cyber Formula. The fact that it's based on a rather ace anime TV series is perhaps the best thing about this one. Well, that and the graphics, which are undeniably fast. The problem is that it's fairly boring. Number 339, Mario is Missing. One of the better entertainment/education carts we've seen. And no disgrace to the Mario mythos, but from an over 8 years old perspective, it suffers from traditional edutainment problems. Chiefly that the game is too repetitive. You do get to learn lots about historic sites, though. Number 338, Pop and Twinbee Rainbow Adventures. Cute is a nasty word, but an apt one. I even enjoyed the giggle that greeted me every time I started a new level. Unfortunately, the chances are you've already got something that does the job just as well, if not better. Number 337, Super Formation Soccer 2. It's a funny old game. It doesn't feel much like football. It's not very multiplayer-ish, and it's a real con that you've already got the first game. But it's still fun, sort of. Number 336, Mario and Wario. Nintendo obviously wants to get the most out of their mouse, but as a puzzle game which gets its irritating hooks into you, it works. Number 335, Koushien 2. Very Japanese, very weird, but really not all that bad. Number 334, The Humans. So close to being playable, it hurts, but too slow to be fun. The puzzles are well constructed, but it takes so long to play through each one that you'll tire of it soon after you start. Number 333, Cosmo Gang. Smart graphics, loads and loads of neat touches, and plenty of humor. It's also pretty good fun to play, for a while. But moving left and right while firing a lot simply wasn't enough to sustain my interest. Sorry. Number 332, Phalanx. So, there you have it, one of the most middle-of-the-road shoot-'em-ups. It's got its impressive bits, it's got its lousy bits, and while it's far better than the worthless Blazon and its pals, it equally trails well behind the likes of the brilliant Super Aleste. Number 331, Wildsnake. A puzzle game that works as well as it was designed to, but it's not as engrossing, rewarding to play, or fun as Tetris, so only top Snake fans should buy it. Like Terry Nutkins, for example. Like Terry Nutkins, huh? I wonder who that is. Hey, Lauren, do you have a clue who Terry Nutkins is, or was?
And for those of you not aware, Terry Nutkins was an English naturalist, television presenter and author. He appeared in UK children's programmes such as Animal Magic, The Really Wild Show, and Growing Up Wild. An all-round great guy and an all-round naturalist nut. Nutkins, I get it now.
Oh, so he's like Steve Irwin or Jack Hanna. He sounds a lot braver than I am. Here's a live video of how I would react if I were surrounded by a bunch of wild snakes.
Texas rat snakes are going to be one of the largest snakes that you find in the Metroplex area. Get this thing off me, man. Get this thing off me, man. God dang.
Number 330, Asterix. Bright and cheerful and good fun to play with a good feel for the license. But there's nothing here we haven't seen before. Number 329, Darius Force. Reasonable enough, but the Super Nintendo has enough reasonable shoot-'em-ups already. Come on, let's have a really good one for a change. Number 328, Mega Man X3. Playing Mega Man X3, it's impossible to escape the feeling that Capcom is cashing in on their loyal fans. It's a good game, certainly, but there are none of the new ideas we were hoping for in Part 2, in which now, third time around, must be considered mandatory. Number 327, Ranma 1/2. Fabulously imaginative with the weirdest range of moves ever in a beat-em-up. It's a bit too easy, but anime fans will love it. Number 326, Super Play Action Football. A complex American football game. It has an off-putting number of plays and controls to deal with, but is a faithful and accurate game. This one is good for the fans, great for statistic freaks, but a little too heavy for the rest of us. Number 325, Dragon Ball Z Hyperdimension. A surprising score, you may be thinking, considering the technical expertise on show. Well, yes, but technical excellence can never compensate for a spot of original gameplay, and sadly, Hyperdimension lacks it in abundance. Number 324, Wings 2. The pictures make it seem more exciting than it is, but they're not that far off. The game's not as varied as Pilot Wings and doesn't look as pretty, but it has the massive advantage that you can shoot the other flying things. Yeah, make up your own mind. Number 323, BioMetal. A polished game with decent graphics and enjoyable and tricky on hard action. It's originality it lacks, not challenge. Number 322, Turn and Burn, No Fly Zone. The best Super NES airborne combat sim yet. But couldn't the 12-strong development team be put to better use? Number 321, Beauty and the Beast. It all looks fine and dandy, but you should never judge a book by its cover. Or, as this game proves, never judge a game by its graphics. Number 320, Inspector Gadget. Like a lot of things and people, it's good, but not great. You can spend a pleasant couple of hours with it and then not be bothered if you never play it again. Number 319, T2, the arcade game. Kill millions of things with the mouse, Super Scope, or the humble joypad. Enjoy it less than you thought, maybe, and get bored with it slightly sooner than you thought, too. Number 318, Biker Mice from Mars. An effective interpretation of a dubious license, and inevitably much more fun in two-player rather than solo mode. Loud, zippy, and stylish, but lacking substance, innovation, and longevity. And out of rock and roll racing and this is definitely best. Number 317, Super Empire Strikes Back. More of the same for Super Star Wars fans. And that's not necessarily the buying recommendation it might at first sound like. Number 316, Battle Grand Prix. For a good example of how not to program a game, check this one out. Battle Grand Prix sounds great, the screen's split vertically for a true head-to-head action, but playing it is another matter. Number 315, Super Fire Pro Wrestling 2. As a one-player game, this is a dead loss, but with a Super Multi-Tap 4-player adapter, it's by far the best wrestling game by far. Lots of Japanese text, though. Number 314, Hook. A polished platform romp that relates to the film about as well as a computer game can. 10 levels don't provide enough challenge, and the infinite continues will enable most players to waltz right through the whole thing quite easily. Fun, but not a great buy. Number 313, Robotrek. Look at the pictures, everything can be gleaned from them. Certainly, while Robotrek doesn't do anything original, what it does fairly well. Number 312, Suzuki F1. A good, solid driving game which, bar the odd no warning of corner problem, should give you many hours of useful service. That said, it's hopelessly outclassed by Human Grand Prix. Number 311, Joe and Mac. Hardly the slickest platforming game, but one of the most lively and colorful. The gameplay isn't likely to appeal to the serious player, though. Number 310, Porky Pig's Haunted Holiday. Porky wears his heart on his sleeve, and tattooed on his heart are the words simple, formulaic platformer for kids. Number 309, Super Pang. Like a swan that's had its wings cruelly clipped, Super Pang is perfect in almost every way, but can't get off the ground in the last ability stakes. True, it's fun for a while, but a two-player option would have made all the difference. Number 308, Spider-Man and X-Men, Arcade's Revenge. Occasionally lively, but more commonly plodding, multi-level superhero thriller. Really lousy graphics, though nifty music. This is one for Spider-Man, X-Men fans, but very average for the rest of us. Number 307, Super R-Type. A great-looking and very challenging shooter that's let down a little on the technical side. Number 306, Dragon Ball Z. Good-looking anime-based beat-em-up, using interesting windows to depict the action. Lots of moves, if hard to access. Number 305, Super Pinball Behind the Mask. Lovely to look at, decent to play, but is limited as a guitar with only one string. Number 304, Final Stretch. Brilliant 3D scrolling. I mean, it's a real striking game when you first see it, but with very little to actually do. A real disappointment. Number 303, Roger Clemens MVP Baseball. A few graphical probs, but nice and playable. Number 302, Newman-Haas Indy Car. The Nigel Mansell license isn't enough to make this a corker. It's not too terrible, though. It's just rather samey and not quite enough to keep your interest. And finally, number 301, Time Trax. slick, and tremendously entertaining for the 2 or 3 days that it'll last you. So, what did we learn this episode? Well, we learned that Superplay was filled with backhanded compliments. I don't know, perhaps it's because we're finally in the low 70% range, which is still somewhere between being great and being awful. As a result, we get a lot of reviews that kind of sound like this. It's the best game of its type, but you would be a fool to buy it. I mean, Yoshi's Safari is supposed to be the best light gun game, but the Super Scope is still garbage. Huh, look at this, Mario is Missing is a lot of fun. For an edutainment game. And let's talk about Mario and Warrior and how cute it is. But did you really buy a Super NES to play a puzzle game? Man, by the time we get to the sarcastic Super Empire Strikes Back review, I found myself wanting to scream. I feel like Superplay went from being nasty to just being straight up passive aggressive. And over a game that received a 72%, that's not even a terrible score. I suppose the good news is that we're nearing the genuinely good games. I mean, we're halfway through the list and ended at 73%. That's not that far from 80%, which is where the real recommendations start coming in. At the same time, we still have another 300 games to talk about in the next 3 weeks, which, let me tell you, I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around. We haven't even gotten to most of the biggest titles. I guess we'll see how many of those pop up in episode 7, which will debut on December 14th, followed by episode 8 on Friday. For now, I think I need to go and dry off after standing in the river for the last 20 minutes. See you next week for 2 brand new episodes of Super Play's Top 600. Hey, thanks for watching this episode of Super Play's Top 600. We're now exactly halfway through the countdown, which means that this is the perfect time to catch up on all the episodes that you've missed. We have a whole playlist filled with all 6 episodes, so go ahead and binge watch the first half of the season as you get ready for the exciting second half. And hey, maybe share it with a friend or on social media, or just yell it from the rooftop. That would really help. Now, here's the question I have for you. What did you learn from this Super Play episode? As we get into the middle group of games, we're starting to see Super Play's attitude change a little bit. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this week's reviews. In other news, we'll be back on Monday with a review of Atari's newest recharged classic, Asterix. That'll be followed on Tuesday with the 7th episode of Super Play's Top 600. If that sounds good to you, then I strongly recommend you click that subscribe button and support what we're doing here. Until then,